People who were childhood friends with a now celebrity. Who were they, and what were they like as a young person? Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen. Saw them mostly at Thanksgivings with both of our families, or occasionally met up with them and their family if we visited LA. They're really good girls that dealt with a lot of S***T for trying to grow up and live a normal life while also being well recognized and chased around everywhere they went. And by extension I also know their sister Lizzie, who is getting close to the same attention as the twins got, but is able to handle it better, since she's obviously an adult now, and can process things better than if she were much younger. My dad went to the next high school over from Steve Carroll, and they hung out in the same friend group. Said he was goofy and funny, but not exceptionally so. They actually ran into one another at my great uncle's funeral a few years back and chatted a bit. Said he seemed like he was still a pretty decent normal guy. Benedict Cumberbatch, in the year below me, inherited my prep school blazer from the hand-me-down cupboard, my mum tells me. Not surprising, since the only place you could buy them new was Harrods. Extremely pleasant fellow at 11, he was. I went to high school with John Heder, was a friendly guy, kinda goofy. When Napoleon Dynamite came out and became a craze I couldn't believe it was him. I went to secondary school with Isaac Hempstead Wright, Bran from GOT. He's always been a nice guy and glad to see he's doing well. My dad grew up in Massapequa, town on Long Island, and was best friends in elementary through high school with Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry would often jokingly call my dad the second funniest kid in school, of course referring to himself as the funniest. I went to high school with Pink. I was kind of shy, but a lot of my friends were better friends with her. She was alright. I remember her singing to herself a lot. My mom used to go to the same gym as Dwayne Johnson. She had just started going again at this point and she hadn't been to a gym in 10 plus years due to an incident where someone had a heart attack in her spin class. This was before he was famous and everything. She just saw he knew what he was doing. She walked up to him and said, "I'm sorry if I'm bothering you. I just don't really know where to start with all this." He immediately stopped in the middle of his workout and helped design an entire workout plan for her, including showing her what machines / how to use them. Over the next several months, every time he was there and he saw my mom, he would ask her how her workout was going. Just genuinely a nice guy. Sadly she moved and couldn't go back to the same gym, but she has kept using the workout he designed for her, and she kept a six-pack well into her 50s. I know it's not really being childhood friends with them, but it was still when he was super young and he had a profound impact on my mom's life, so I thought I would share. Taylor Lautner would get mad when people called him Shark Boy in high school. Can't say I blame him. My siblings and I found some pictures the other day of our mom with John Travolta and Peter Horton hanging out on the beach and with his private jet when they were younger. Our grandma was and still is best friends with Ellen Travolta, John's older sister. I went to school with Chris Pratt and he was a nice guy. Was able to bounce between all the different circles / or cliques. Got along with everyone. I wasn't surprised when he became famous. My grandmother was Frank Sinatra's high school sweetheart. He asked her to marry him and she told him that he had no future and to get a job. He left town and became Frank Sinatra. We have all their letters. My uncle went to college with John Cena. He said he would walk down the dorm halls naked. Mike Myers went to a high school down the street from mine. We hung out with the same people. Charmingly funny and very humble. I haven't seen him for a very long time, but I do watch his interviews, and he seems to be the same guy he was. I always loved it when he came on the TV wearing a Toronto Maple Leaf jersey. Happy he has done so well. He was a jokester and always good to people. Hasn't forgotten where he came from. That's endearing and rare. Went to high school with Neil Patrick Harris. He wasn't a bad dude, but wasn't humble in the least. He was still working on T.G. Hauser. When he was at school, he wasn't allowed to be himself, surrounded by fans and others. He had a nickname of Drama Dog by some of the other cliques. He hasn't gone to one of the reunions. Also went with Freddie Prinze Jr. He was a cool dude, but hung out with guys that stroked his ego and bullied others. I was an unfortunate victim to that. He hasn't made it to a reunion yet either. I know the Charlie bit my finger guy. He's a bit annoying. My dad went to high school with George Lucas. George was the same age as my aunt and had a huge crush on her. She was already dating my uncle at the time and was super popular, so that never would have happened anyway. My dad was a few years younger. He was on the tennis team with George and would get rides to practice from him from time to time. My dad said George was nice and also pretty nerdy, no surprises there, and my dad was too, so they got along fine. I don't think he was bullied necessarily, but it definitely wasn't popular. He had big ears. They weren't friends, but they were friendly, at least as much as a senior would be to a scrawny freshman on the tennis team. He also talked about the car accident. It was a really huge deal in the town. I like to think George Lucas would remember my family, but who knows. My dad went to college with Stephen Fry. Said he was one of the funniest dudes he ever met. Also, my granddad went to art college with John Lennon. I unfortunately don't know if they knew each other well or not, since my granddad passed away when I was 6. My father-in-law went to high school with and briefly, like one date briefly, dated Gillian Anderson. He says she was really wild, your typical bad girl, but she was super sweet and genuinely a good person, so she got away with it. Not a friend, but I knew Henry Cavill when he was a kid. He was sweet and reliable, and generally a very nice person. Haven't seen him since around the era when he was taking roles in films like Hellraiser 8, because working as an actor isn't easy. Can't really imagine what it must be like to be the subject of the intense media gaze that goes with being a global celebrity. My mom went to college with Bob Odenkirk, Better Call Saul guy. They were in the radio department together and apparently he was super funny. They also took shrooms together, and I've been jealous of my mom ever since I heard that story. My great grandma, still alive, lived close to Elvis' home. They talked like 3 times. She literally thought he was the most annoying little s*****t. The kid who wrote the Aragon series, Christopher Paolini, went to school a ways from here. I can't say I knew him, but it's rural Montana, so I ran into him a few times, since nobody lives out here. He used to show up at our school promoting his book dressed in Renaissance fair style clothing. We all thought he was kind of a geek. He's worth like 30 mil now, because of a book he wrote when the rest of us were still trying to figure out who to take to prom. What's funny is that I actually recognize a few characters and places in his books as being partly based on locals in the surrounding area. I went to junior and senior high school with Matthew Lillard. He was a class clown type and also smart. I did a lot of theater with him and he overacted. He was perfectly cast as Shaggy. My grandma went to high school with Ted Bundy. She said he was quiet and didn't really have any friends. My aunt was Zendaya's teacher in 4th grade. She says that she was a sweet girl. They saw each other at a meet and greet a while back. Pretty nice. I knew Michael Phelps. He was a little famous when I met him, 2003, but not uber famous yet. Great guy, friendly and funny. We played poker off and on. He loved to play, but loved to win more and often would not fold. Felted him a few times for $100 to $300. He was super ADHD and had trouble saying no to anything. He did best when he was not distracted by other people and had a lot of structure. Swimming was perfect for him. Not friends really, but I went to high school with Cody Rhodes, real name Runnels. He was a nice enough guy. Only interacted with him a few times. He was on the wrestling team and in the drama club, so everyone knew what his post-graduation plans were. I also used to work at Toys R Us, and I can't tell you how weird it is to stock a shelf with an action figure of a guy you knew in high school. My younger brother was friends with Justin Bieber. I didn't know him super well, saw him here and there, but always stood out, even before he was famous, as he was the type of kid who would very loudly make fun of and bully others. I remember him being kicked off the city buses a few times for yelling at and being rude to mentally/physically disabled people, along with just old people in general as well. My dad interned with Tom Hanks when he first started out at the Great Lakes Shakespeare Festival. He was always very kind and charismatic with everyone, and just a constant ball of energy. When his son Colin was born, he proudly showed him off to everybody. He was probably just days old. About 3 years ago, there was a reunion of all the Great Lakes interns. My dad went, not knowing if he was going to show up, and if he did, if he'd remember him. But not only did he show up, he approached my dad and remembered him by his full name. He is honestly just a really great man. One of my high school bullies was on the first 6 episodes of Star Trek Discovery. He was a crewman on the bridge and had a couple close-ups. It really bothered me because he was the type of the person to ruthlessly make fun of geeks. By the time episode 7 aired, I had worked through my feelings, but in retrospect I'm super happy he doesn't get to go 32nd century. My mom went to a Christian high school with Marilyn Manson. Yes, ironic, I know. They were pretty good friends and he used to draw her weird but cool drawings. My mom was extremely outgoing and was friends with everyone though. He eventually dropped out, or transferred I believe. Not me, but my mom went to junior high with Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook. She says that both were sort of overachievers, and so there was always a rivalry between them. My mom considers her to have been a frenemy. Went to elementary school with Justin Bieber. He was a total bully and a giant of shit, but for some reason he took a liking to me and invited me to all his birthdays. A funny memory I have is of him making fun of some kid on the stairwell and then tripping and falling down the stairs and then crying all the way to the principal's office. He has always been a total douche. Went to school with the adopted grandson of Picasso. Not a celebrity but filthy rich. I grew up on the same street as one of the stars of Suits. I knew him as the kid who constantly played with his dick from on top of his pants. Emma Stone. She was very bright, intelligent, and naturally charismatic. She often got the lead in all of the school plays. I remember one year, in our 3rd grade play, the main role was something she really wanted, and I ended up getting it. Even though she was disappointed, she still told me congratulations, and that she thought I would do a good job. We used to play gymnastics at her house all the time, and pretend we were Carrie Strug. Her parents got us both USA leotards. She was a sweet girl. We kind of split up later in elementary school and don't talk anymore, but she was a great friend. My cousin dated Filthy Frank in high school. She said he was a totally normal guy IRL, and that he was really funny and nice. Edit. For those asking, no, she's not Chloe Burbank, and according to my cousin, they only broke up when graduating from high school to college, and did it on good terms, so I'm pretty sure all his videos about heartbreak had no correlation to his real life at all. I was best friends with Post Malone in high school, and he's pretty much the same person he was then in high school that he is now, just some more wild adventures, but his personality has been that same, and it's nice to see, with the fame and money, he stayed who he is. Fun fact, he used to be an indie music guy in high school, wore Hawaiian v-necks, high watertight black jeans, and Toms. Coolest, chilliest, and funniest dude you could have hung out with. One of my cousins went to school with 6ix99. They weren't friends. I asked him what it was like. He told me that 6ix99 was just the same dumbass that he is today, and I'm not really surprised. I went to the same school as Emma Watson and we shared many of the same teachers, though she graduated the year before I started. From what the teachers say, she was very studious and serious about her work and wanting to achieve. She was really good at art and English, and is still really good friends with the old English department, and even contributed a hand-drawn postcard to our school's centenary celebration. We all had to do postcards for an exhibit. She was really nice, but you couldn't talk to her or fangirl over her if you didn't know, otherwise the teachers would penalize you. This was during the Harry Potter years. My sister went to school with Hulk Hogan's daughter. She said she was a normal kid, didn't really act like a dumbass. My great-grandmother was a rocket dancer in the massive New York City parade. She used to brag about how she went on a few dates with Frank Sinatra. Don't know if this counts, but my mom lived down the street from Jeffrey Dahmer. She said he was really recluse/closed off. This was when she was little, and she said she is very lucky not to have had a brother, lol. Went to school with Jabby from iCarly. He was bullied so hard for being the fat kid from the show that he left our school back when Yak Yak was in its prime. My mom went to high school with the boss, Bruce Springsteen. Said he was a recluse and didn't go to class. He preferred to sit in the hallways and play his guitar. He eventually dropped out and the rest, as we all know, is history. Springsteen still roams around locally and I even see him at the same gym that I go to. Nice guy but still remains very quiet and secluded from everybody else. My grandma, a couple weeks ago, mentioned she used to party with John Wayne Gacy. She said they did all sorts of drugs and passed out high and drunk together. Thankfully, she was of the female variety of their gay friend clique and was sparred. I went to high school with John Legend. He was a child prodigy. He graduated 2 years early and was class president. I just remember him being immensely gifted and mature. In the morning, he would walk around with a mug of coffee and talk to the teachers. If he wasn't so young, you all assumed he was a teacher or administrator. Nice guy though. This will be buried below thousands of other stories, but Bill Murray. He was a senior in high school, I was a freshman. He was in a folk trio with this guy Larry Basil. We were all convinced Larry Basil was gonna be big. Murray sang behind the other two, no instrument I recall, and was the goof he is now. Not really friends, but once my great grandmother ejected John F. Kennedy because his car was dirty. I went to school with and hung in the same circles as one of the current Queer Eye guys. He was okay, we got along fine, though looking back I can imagine it wasn't great for him. This was a fairly conservative small town in Missouri. No, he wasn't out then, or at least not in a public way. Emily Ratajkowski went to my high school. She was a couple years younger, but we were in a writing class together. She's always been confident, sure of herself. I never knew anyone to dislike her, but with the age gap, we were in different circles, so I didn't spend a lot of time with her. Her dad was the painting teacher. She was always skinny, artsy, wore interesting clothes, hung out with the thespian folks. She's the only daughter of older parents who are very freeform. My grandmother was a high school English teacher in the 50s. Many of her former students who moved away after graduation made a point of stopping by to see her when they came back home. The National AAU Boxing Championships were in our city in 1959 and Skeeter McClure came to her house to say hi. He won an Olympic gold medal the next year. He brought a friend who was also boxing, a 17-year-old Cassius Clay, who a few years later changed his name to Muhammad Ali. My grandmother said he was the most charismatic, electrifying, and nicest person she ever met. She became and stayed a huge fan. I went to school with Nathalie Emmanuel, Hoss now Miss Andy in Game of Thrones. She was always very sweet. I'm pleased to see her doing so well now. Make sure to like and subscribe for more daily content. Thanks for watching.